Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the October 15th, 2020 Horsehead Central School District Board of Education meeting. Tonight we are live streamed due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and we are recording this for transparency and open meeting law, and it will be posted and updated to our website. You can also join us through the portal at our website by connecting onto the link on the main header page. In addition, if you have any future questions, please feel free to contact my office or tdouglas@horseheadsdistrict.com so that I can bring those questions up as well and discuss them in open session as needed. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to our President of the Board of Education, Ms. Christine Dale.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Can I please have you stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
States of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. All right, first up on our agenda this evening is action vote for our meeting minutes from our September 17th regular business meeting. Have a motion for the minutes, to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussions, any questions or comments related to the minutes? Okay, all those in favor say aye, and also raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. And any abstentions? Okay, thank you. Next up, I think we missed if there's any agenda changes, but I don't think we have any agenda changes tonight. So I'm just going to keep on going forward. Our next up on our agenda is the questions from the community. And as Dr. Douglas stated at the beginning, because this is a Zoom session, any questions that he has received prior to the meeting, he is going to go through. And if you do have questions prior to the next meeting, please feel free to reach out to Dr. Douglas's office so we can make sure that they are answered as part of the board meeting. So Dr. Douglas, I'll turn it over to you for those questions.
Thank you, Ms. Dale. Sorry, I had to get up. My power all of a sudden said it was going off. So I didn't want to cut out in the middle. So I did receive several conversations with wonderful community members who are out there that were just looking and seeking information. So even though they weren't necessarily for the board, I thought I'd bring them up because I imagine if one person's asking, several would. And one goes back to the SAT platform that Horseheads participates in. Our SATs here are actually run and hired out by the Scholastic Aptitude Testing Center, and that is run by an individual on our staff who's contracted through the SATs. So they make absolute decisions in regards to the test when they're offered as well as when they're canceled. We have had a discussion because they did cancel one that sort of caught us as well because we were answering questions to it. And also responses were that we had an open testing center and that many people from across the area during a high infection rate were coming together, and it was ill-advisable based on that person's decision for health and safety to offer the test, so they canceled it. Because we have a lot of area here that we can utilize. We have a test coming up on the 7th, and unless the SAT cancels it, we are planning on trying to move that forward. I'll be reaching out with our advisor for that to make sure if they need any extra help, the district will put forth whatever's needed for that. And this way, there's always a two-way street of information so no one is making a decision alone. And that way, Horseheads is doing what's best for its students. In addition, we had a member of our community reach out and ask the question, how come we're not getting a 50% tax reduction or a 60% tax reduction because the school is only teaching 2 days a week? Isn't the district making savings because they aren't offering extracurriculars, their buses aren't out, and so forth? This individual was very wonderful to talk to, very easy to talk to. And basically at the end of it, the individual thanked us for what we've been doing over the past several years as he found out that yes, taxes are taxes, but Horseheads provides one of the best educational processes for one of the lowest per pupil taxes in the entire area, and that our tax rate is second lowest only to the Watkins Glen, and that everybody else is above ours, and that if we taxed on the same rates as our competitors, especially, we'd be receiving anywhere from an additional $3 to $9 to $12 million extra a year. So you really get a value for the money. And over my 6 years here, I'm proud of the board's work and my work as well to make sure that since I started, taxes have gone down with a major construction project by $4 per $100,000 of value over the past 6 years. And that should be something that any board is very proud of, to keep stability as well. In regards to the issue of savings in the district, yes, if we don't offer something, there are potential savings in the district. The only caveat, however, to that is the district has already expended over $2.5 million just to meet the safety, health, and technology needs to even open up this year for all of our community. That is above and beyond the budget, but we will try to make it work. In addition, the district is facing a potential $6.8 million reduction in state aid if we do not get any help from the federal government, which at this point, none is coming. And that means the state will pull back that funds. And if the district is looking to fill 6.8 to anywhere to 8 or million more during this year, that will be devastating to every single program, every single extracurricular activity, and major potential job reductions. I have a hopefulness that once the election is over and once we get into hopefully a little calmer weather of the new year, that the federal government will finally take this serious and our governor will at least get some assistance to help municipalities and schools. So although you may think there's savings, we still operate every single day. We teach every day, and we still provide food, service, transportation to all. Which brings me to another question. Why are some of our buses on the road? One of the individuals recently has put out the question of, geez, I was out and we can see these buses on the road, and why are they there? Well, unfortunately, I've tried to ask our legal counsel why we should be, if we're in remote, putting buses out to take kids to other schools. We do have an obligation under special education law for out-of-district placements, and we have an obligation as well for all private schools. Whether we agree or not is not our choice. We could absolutely be closed for bad weather delay, and we would still potentially have to put buses out on the road. So that is one of the issues that, unfortunate as it may be, we are a hot zone at this point. And unfortunately, I do not believe a lot of people think we're a hot zone. But the data you'll see later will help indicate that, because that goes to another question. Why are we on remote? Why are other districts not? Well, we'll talk about that during the open session as we've had a presentation for the board with the actual data that the state uses, which clearly shows Chemung County is the highest in infection of positivities over a 7-day rolling average, even more so than the main county downstate, which is Rockland County. Unfortunately, we are upstate, so we are not in the specter of the political view. But unfortunately, each district has to make their own decision what's best for their district and the safety and sanctity of their students, staff, and community. And that's what Horseheads has had to do, and you'll see that through the data. In addition, there was a question of, our seniors, and I don't mean senior citizens, but I certainly worry about them the most, especially during this time. But our seniors in school are losing everything. It's so unfair. It is absolutely so unfair. Our seniors are losing everything, but also our pre-K through 11th graders are losing their education, and all of them need to have a better opportunity. But in this time, it is unfortunately what it is with the COVID-19 pandemic. I will say we are trying to do everything we can to keep this year moving forward, even with extracurriculars, even with our athletics programs, depending on the outcomes of guidance from the state and making sure we can do it without the liability that comes from having contracted COVID-19 due to a program of the school. That brings us to another question, which has always been a hot topic all summer long, is why aren't sports not allowed? Why did you lead the charge to cancel sports for the area, which is highly unfactual statement. What is factual is I asked the section to have a conversation with all superintendents in the region, as well as the ADs, so that 1 or 2 people up in Sydney did not make a decision that would impact the entire region and possibly discriminate against 3 specific sports: football, volleyball, as well as cheerleading, and only allow them to practice with the ability of possibly losing their entire season. So what happened is we did finally get the ability for all superintendents to meet, all ADs to meet, and a fellow friend of mine led those discussions, and ultimately the entire section voted, I believe it was roughly 59 or 58 out of 68 districts, to postpone all sports until January 4th. And right now that postponement is because all superintendents really were asking is that everybody be given the same exact opportunity to have even a condensed sports season, because it's important not to represent some and not others. And that's really the decision. Now, what happens is, can we promise that we're going to have sports on January 4th? Everything depends on our communities. Everything depends on the health and safety. And it also depends on the section and guidance from the state. Especially right now, all competitors are supposed to be wearing a mask during practice as well as during any competition. And that someone can make a decision to take that mask off. But the real problem is that that decision must be a situation that is not for individual students or families to make, but medical personnel. And that is the real issue. So please understand that as we do that, that is what we're looking at: how to be best for all kids, all situations, and do it in a very safe way. And one of our last questions comes, and I know this is a lot, but there's been a lot going on, and it's a very busy time for every administrator across this state and every teacher and even every parent at home. It's not like anyone's sitting around. There is so much to do. But our biggest question was about CTE at BOCES. CTE at BOCES, we opted to make sure that our kids followed our schedule so that we did not overpack BOCES. BOCES has been going, and other people have been allowing kids to go on the other days that they're remote. We were getting ready to do that as of maybe October 5th. We were getting a letter to go out, but unfortunately we could not do that because an outbreak occurred at BOCES at that time. And since, we've had our own issues to deal with remote. But it is something we are exploring to do upon our eventual return to in-person learning, that students will always come to school and go to BOCES on their in-person days, and however, on their out-of-person or hybrid days where they're remote, they would have the opportunity to provide their own transportation and own parking or own relationship with the BOCES campus that they serve, as it will be above and beyond the basic educational program. And that is, we will allow them the choice to be able to attend BOCES, with the understanding that if we have remote closures and stuff, they must follow our closures and our restrictions. So we're hoping to get those answers out. So those are several of the questions. Hopefully I've answered them as well. And if you have other questions, you're more than welcome to email me at tdouglas@horseheadsdistrict.com. And I'll be happy to try to represent you as fairly and factually as possible. So thank you. And I'll have more to discuss on the data during our presentation. Ms. Dale?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Douglas. Now I'm going to turn it over to Sarah Dorio, our student representative. So Sarah.
Yes, so as we have been shut down for this time, a lot of students I've discussed with and friends, teachers, and class, we all are anxious to be getting back into the school, but they all understand that the reason that we're not in school is because we have something going on in our community, our health and safety that we're worrying about right now. And we are taking consideration of what's going on in our school and still working as hard as we can be during the closure that we're having right now. And some exciting things, some positive things to look out to is that our student council is back. So we're still trying to figure out ways to bring some excitement and events in our school, but keep that safe distance and stay virtually. We're figuring out ways to have like trivia nights on Kahoot or something like that. We're finding a way to have a movie night. We're still figuring out what we're doing along those lines, and planning our Spirit Week, which is also a very exciting thing for our students in our school. And we have also elected our class officers for every class, and they are starting with their fundraisers to help with their fundings for future proms and events that will happen at our school. And we are also figuring out ways to make this crazy year, and especially during this closure, an exciting time for all of the students at the high school. Thank you.
Hey, thank you very much, Sarah. Thank you for your update and for your enthusiastic responses and optimism. So I know this is a really tough year for all of you seniors, but I appreciate your patience. So thank you. Okay, next we're going to turn it over to our presentations, and we do have an update on our capital project with a lot of the exciting construction activity that's been happening across the district. So I'll turn it over to representatives from both Hunt and Welliver.
And if you'll just give me a second, I'm going to share my screen, which will have the presentation on it. So Bill, you may have to zoom in a little bit more so that they can get that presentation. Share. Okay, and then Brian, just use the click, or just say next slide, please.
I'll just say next slide for you if that works.
There you go.
All right. Well, thank you guys for having us. I know it's been a while since we've had a formal presentation, and probably one of the first that's mostly focused on actual construction updates. So Chad will chime in here towards the end, but this is going to be heavily involved on, we do have some photos to share of progress updates, as well as some summaries of what we've done to date and what we have going on now, as well as a look into the future of what we have that remains. So just a reminder of what this overall referendum entailed. It does entail 5 total projects. 2 summers ago, we did the elementary school phase 1 project at all the elementary schools. That is closed out at this time. Furthermore, last year, leading into last summer, we had a district-wide technology project, again, at all of the elementary schools in Bus Garage. That's closed out at this time as well. Currently, we have 2 projects in progress. The high school, which is in progress from now and actually began about a year ago. And that does go through all the way through the summer of 22. We will give you guys kind of an update of what we've done to date, coming up, what we've got going on, some turnover dates, as well as future work that will be coming down the pipeline. Also at the intermediate school and middle school, we did kick off that project. It's a 2-summer project here at the beginning of this summer. So phase 1 of that is complete. We'll give you guys an update on that. And then Hunt will give a quick progress update on where we stand with the upcoming phase 2 project that we'll be bidding here in the near future. Next slide, please. So for the high school update, first we're going to go over what we've completed as well as what we have ongoing, and then I'll wrap it up at the end with some of the upcoming future work we have over the next year to 2 years. I know we've been working here for about a year, so far what we've gotten completed was the Area K, which we call it the Area K. You'll see here on the next slide there is a map of the building. It's all color coded and zoned, so please refer to that map when we refer to different zones within this discussion. But Area K West Science Room, you're going to see is the green area on the map on the next page. We really turned existing social studies and English rooms, so generic classrooms, into science rooms. This involved a lot of underground work, saw cutting the slab, gas rough-ins, much more extensive work than a normal classroom. We'll go through that, and we do have some photos of that to show to you guys. The Area E math classroom renovations, I apologize, zone 11 on the map. That is just 3 classrooms. There were 3 science rooms we renovated into new math classrooms. That was a quick project over the summer, a little less extensive because there's not all of the plumbing and mechanical and electrical rough-ins quite as required for the science renovations. We'll also show you guys some progress photos of the library corridor, which we had to open in order for school to get back open. This is opened without necessarily finishes, which was by plan. We will continue to get wall finishes, floor finishes, ceilings in as we work through the library and approach into the next summer. We also got a little bit more work done, we'll show you, with some exterior ramps than we thought we were going to. Originally, we were actually gonna have to put temporary like aluminum or wood ramps in for egress, but with school being out a little bit earlier, we were able to do some of that major structural work that we originally weren't gonna have time for. We also did the new parking lot out back. I say that's completed. We do have temporary striping. We did only put the binder course, the bottom heavy duty course of pavement down. And that was a plan modification to avoid any damages to a brand new pavement parking lot. So we will be coming back next summer and doing the actual topping pavement and final striping as to not damage that as we continue to build some of these other additions we're working on. Ongoing work, we'll also have some photos of this as well. We've got the cafeteria renovations in addition, a lot of progress in there in the last 3 to 4 months. Getting out of the ground and getting through the steel phase of it really opened things up quite a bit. That is a planned turnover for January of 21 right now. So ideally, that is going to roll right into a middle school project we'll bring up here in a few minutes, but we'll give you some photos and updates there. The library addition, not just the corridor, but now we have a temporary wall blocking off the corridor from the actual library in the courtyard itself. Also on track and planning to turn over in January of 2021. And then we've got the stadium. The stadium and outbuildings, I'll talk about those 2 in 1 because they do really tie together. The outbuildings are on path to get turned over in the summer of 21. And the stadium, although it may look like it's further ahead and will be like in the next probably 3 weeks, we're going to start turf installation. But by no means does that mean we're right on the cusp of turning it over. We still have to let the asphalt pavement for the track cure over the winter. And we also have to install the track surfacing, which actually takes some time to cure as well. So in late spring, we'll be installing that, installing all of the final equipment like goal posts, soccer goals, and any miscellaneous things that remain. And that will be getting turned over at the end of summer of 21. So that's what we've got ongoing and completed today. I did want to throw this slide in, obviously for reference. You see the zones up in the right corner. So when I said the library corridor, the red section on the map is the connecting corridor we got completed. The green section for the science classrooms. And then obviously we are still working on the royal blue library addition, as well as the kind of lime green cafeteria area. Big picture wise, it all kind of connects. The orange section in the top left, we've actually are renovating, and obviously anybody that's been out back to the building has seen the link has been torn down. There was a lot of coordination between that red corridor needing to be open for school before we could tear down that orange corridor. But so this map, please feel free to refer back to it if there's any questions. More than happy to. But now I'll start showing some progress photos and kind of going over some of the overall progress and challenges we've faced thus far. I thought I had to throw this photo in there. It's not anything specific, but Hunt's been doing an awesome job taking drone photos and progress of the project. This is probably a couple weeks before school opened, and I just thought it was a really cool photo showing your cafeteria in the distance, the library progress, the link is gone, and then the parking lot, we get the general idea of the shape of it, and obviously there's more striping down now, but it is all temporary. So the next slide has got a photo of Area K classrooms, science classrooms. Again, I kind of already went over this a little bit. We turned general classrooms into science. So there's fume hoods, gas cocks, student stations with sinks in the middle, teaching stations with sinks in the middle of them. loads of casework for all their science equipment, teaching stations with new interactive boards throughout all of these renovated spaces. We are still working in some of these areas on second shift and of course on weekends and breaks, but it's mostly just buttoning up punch list items. You will see in the upper right photo here, the corridor, what condition that is in. We did not do the lockers. We did not do wall tile finish. We did not do ceiling tiles in this phase, because in a future phase of the project, we come right back and do the other side of the corridor in the exact same fashion we did this side. So rather than trying to piece it together and maybe risk wall tile print lots or something being a little bit off, we're holding off, and we're going to do all the terrazzo striping and stuff like that all in one. So that's, I believe there were 8 science classrooms and 1 BOCES classroom over there. And that's where we've gotten to date with those. I had mentioned the 3 math classrooms in area E, science rooms to begin with. So we were in there as soon as we were able to. I know we got in here a little bit early. We got in and abated everything, demoed out all the old casework and the mechanicals, and pretty much started with a blank slate, built up our new walls with bigger rooms, got new heating units, new casework. This picture doesn't capture the casework really all that well, but on the opposite wall is actually in all 3 rooms a full lane of casework. New teaching boards over here, new floor finishes, new window shades, kind of a whole new area. Then on the left side, the corridor outside of these rooms, again, this is where I said we kind of gained a little bit with being able to jump ahead on some ramp work. There was probably, I think it was maybe 3 weeks before school opened, we actually had excavators still inside of this corridor right here. This was one of our biggest challenges of the project, but we bit the bullet, and with the extra time we got, we were able to get some pretty major structural work done that originally wasn't part of the plan. And I think the next slide shows those ramps. Nope, it doesn't. It must be the next one, but we also got, I'll go back to the elevators after the ramps. So these are the ramps I'm talking about. These ramp walls actually have foundations and footers with them. You'll see the doorway is actually recessed into the footprint of the existing building. All of that involved literally digging out the floor slab of existing classrooms, digging down, rerouting piping. A lot of work went into it in a short, about 10-week period of time. And I know we made the district nervous a couple times there towards the end with whether we'd get things put back together and be able to open, but the crews did pull it off pretty well out there.
And if you can notice the blue glazing on the bricks, that was a surprise even to me.
Yeah, so there's a lot of, and I can let Hunt hit that if they want, but they've got blue glazed brick, white glazed brick, and then the red brick on this elevation, along with some limestone that will go in. I think if anybody's driven out back of the building, there is a big wide open, kind of ugly masonry wall right now. That actually gets limestone infilled to it. You'll see our handrails here. Those are not the permanent handrails, in case anybody was wondering. We do have steel handrails coming in for that. That was a precaution to make sure we could get open. But that was a very big challenge to the project. And then this, I'd argue, might have been our biggest challenge of the project since day one, and one of the first things we started on. I think you guys have heard from other updates, but we literally built 2 elevators in the middle of your occupied building throughout since December of last year. Meaning we were sending excavators in after 3:30, 4 o'clock at night, digging holes that deep down into the ground, forming up concrete footers and pouring them. And just a lot of challenges. All the trades stepped up, and this was critical. If we did not get these open and operational by school, we would have been in trouble, because your only existing elevator was in your link, and we had to tear that down in order to continue on and finish that library from the outside. So both elevators are fully operational. These walls will, again, most of the corridors are not receiving finishes at this time. And most of that is by design. I know the public perception might think that we did not get as far as we wanted to, but we're doing a lot of renovations early on in areas that we renovate full on in the future. So those will probably get cleaned up next summer, and the spaces ceilings will start to get patched back in together and start to look a little better. The library corridor, this is an addition that runs parallel with the pool wall, ties in by the weight room entrance, but also over what we call Area G, which would have been the old, I think it's math wing. And that corridor literally runs straight down and ties right into one of those ramps that we showed you that goes outside of the building. This was a pretty good challenge. We went through our fair share of structural issues and unforeseen major structural things that were underground, old tanks and cesspits. But once we were able to get the steel up and going, we probably got more work done here in a 3-month period than we were able to get done in the first 5 or 6 months of it. And it was pretty impressive. The guys all came together to get it. But this basically attaches the north and south wings. With our link gone, this was essential to get done. There are some bathrooms in here that are accessible at this time. They do need to get wall tile put on, but again, we'll be putting that on either over the summer or during breaks. And then also tying in with this work was, I know I kind of already hit it, but I talked about how it tied into Area G. It also ramped into the weight room area, and it also ramped into what we call Area K, which is that science wing. All 3 of those had pretty major structural tie-ins that proved to be pretty challenging to tackle over the summer, as we couldn't begin them until school was out. And then next up is the actual library proper edition itself. I wish I could have updated pictures right up to the minute of this presentation, because in the last week, everything you see in yellow, I shouldn't say everything, but 90% of what you see in yellow there is actually installed, and it's a dark gray, almost black brick. It looks
just barely, Brian, on the far side where the pointer is.
Yep, and I think I have a photo here in a few slides that actually shows it from under the scaffold. But this space really has come together pretty quick here since school's opened. In terms of, I think 3 weeks ago, none of this masonry block was even installed, and they've already done the white block on both sides. And actually, by the end of tomorrow, they'll be pretty close to done with covering all of that yellow portion with block as well. You can see in the bottom photo, there's windows installed up on the roof ledge. Once they got done installing there, they actually went up to the top photo to that upper opening. And all of those window frames have been installed as of today. Glass will be coming in the next week or so. And literally as soon as tomorrow, they'll be moving to the lower opening and putting the big window frames in there, which is going to allow us to close this building in. We have the mechanical equipment getting started up, which is going to allow us to bring in the wood ceiling finishes. It's going to allow us to start installing ceilings, painting walls, any wall tile we've got. We do have some terrazzo work in there, carpeting. And right now, really, we're working towards a casework installation of early to mid-December. And once the casework's installed, we're pretty much going to be final cleaning it and turning it over for the inside portion of this. I think this is a good slide because it shows the outside portion beginning in mid to late. No, it's later this month. I almost said November. Actually, in 2 weeks, the site work contractor is going to go in there. There's a big stormwater chamber we have to put in. And then on top of that goes that outdoor teaching space that's kind of bowled down in with the quartzite benches. There's a ramp that walks down to it and steps that walk down to it. And then once they're done with that, they'll begin kind of final grading out the building, pouring in the sidewalks and working their way out. And there's a deadline on that of mid to late November, so we can start the structural steel at the addition where the existing link was. But before I go that way, let's give you guys an opportunity to see some of the photos inside. I'll reiterate again, it almost pains me I couldn't get photos from just an hour ago or 2 hours ago, because most of the green and framing you see is now covered with drywall. We're really ready in most of these areas with the swooping ceilings and whatnot to start mudding and taping walls and start painting. So there is the black brick that I was talking about. These are just kind of some crude photos to kind of show you how the guys are building it. A lot of manually set up scaffolding, but the black brick kind of gives you an idea of what that accent wall is going to be for this space.
Yeah, and that's a good segue. If you've seen now for the board as well as Sarah, One of the key things we heard all throughout is bring the colors of the school. So our color scheme is blue, white, black, and gray. And as you can see, you're starting to see it being woven into the whole design. So.
And so then the next space we go to is the cafeteria. So again, I guess before I move on, the library is intended to be turned over in January as well right now, as well as the cafeteria. But as we move into the cafeteria, again, I even argue over here, it doesn't do it justice, these photos, because just today we're quite a bit further along. We've been painting walls and whatnot, but this is a photo of the cafeteria kind of looking towards the servery area. Those two big exposed beam openings are the serving area on the other side of it. And you're really looking at some of the wide open eating space right now. You'll see the big there. We have much better pictures of the big skylight feature that's up there to the left. And don't worry, those aren't your window shades. That's just a piece of rubber that is being used to kind of mimic what we're going to be doing for a final installation. Make sure it gets done right. You can see the loading dock in the top right. That's the loading dock leveler. They got a nice new loading dock that goes right in through double doors into the kitchen area. The roof structure from the roof will get trimmed out. You can see the glass block there. From the roof photo, we'll also get metal trim around the perimeter. And actually, that's pretty cool. There's some uplighting that goes in there that actually is multicolored and controllable that we found out about here recently. That's actually, I'm excited to see. I think it's going to look really cool. And then this is really cool. And again, they got up there and painted the roof deck here in the last day. So you don't see those little scratch marks of the paint on the roof deck anymore. But this photos don't really do this thing justice. We call it, some people are calling it the spaceship. Some are calling it the Super Sky Dome. I think it's a pretty cool Oculus feature that just looks really cool and draws the space together. That actually in the next year, probably 2 weeks from now, we actually install a giant fan in that area. There's a name for the manufacturer, but I think they changed it for school districts. But that actually gets controlled by the building automation system. Like I said, there's some pretty cool light fixtures that go around the perimeter of things in there. And we're getting to a point where everything up in there is getting final painted, trimmed out, and we're building our way down. I think I got another photo of the cafeteria. Yes. So this is kind of some different areas within the cafeteria. It's really tough to capture all these in pictures. I hope sometime soon we can give you guys a walk of some of these spaces, but we are beginning wall tile next Monday. The ceiling structure for any exposed ceilings will be getting painted in beginning tomorrow and Monday. Wall finishes. So a lot of these photos where you see just drywall with mud on them, a lot of those spaces actually already have a coat of paint on them as of this afternoon. You'll see the top left is actually part of the corridor of the servery area. There is dry storage in that area. There's the walk-in coolers and freezers. There's the dishwashing area as well. The second photo in to the right from the top is actually the existing corridor between the gym and the cafeteria. This was another big challenge over summer because we actually tore probably 2/3 of the roof off of this entire corridor over the summer and actually had to replace the steel going into the now cafeteria, the old servery area and kitchen. Again, you can see another picture looking into the servery area. A lot of structural issues over here as well. Just unforeseen things as you tear down, finding that there's 2 walls there instead of 1, having to work through it. It's been a long road to get here, but things are starting to come together. And once we start throwing finishes on, it's a breath of fresh air for all of us. So next up is the stadium and site, and I'm kind of lumping the outbuildings in with these. So the outbuildings are just adjacent to the parking lot. You'll see there the masonry scaffold is up with the masonry backup walls are at their full height right now. Brickwork, I think they're looking to be done with brickwork by early to mid next week. It might go into later in the week, but they're really looking to be done and wrapped up and cleaned, and all this scaffold will be down. But some of this area gets an Ariscraft product, which is really like a modular stone product that they began today. So things are moving with that as well. The first week of November, we'll actually be getting steel for those outbuildings. But on the other side of all these walls, we do have plumbing rough-ins going on, masonry walls going up on the inside of the building, electrical rough-ins, floor slabs are being poured. So those buildings are coming together quite nicely. It is very likely we hit a cold season, and some of the finishes in those spaces get held off wall tile. We don't want to be wall tiling in a cold building in the middle of January or February. So it's likely those will go into the spring and build them at the appropriate time. And this should be turned over in midsummer is what we're aiming at. You can also see the photo of the turf track stadium. Our bleachers are pretty well substantial complete. They do have to come back and do some buttoning up of some minor things. The stone dust is out on the actual turf field itself, so we are ready for turf for all intents purposes at this time. But we also need to pave the track with asphalt pavement before we put the turf down. Otherwise, you run the risk of getting tar and heating up that turf field, and we don't want to do that. So that paving is actually scheduled for 2 weeks from now, and then immediately after the turf installation will begin, which will pretty much see things slow down on the actual field itself for the winter months until we can come back and do that track pavement, the top surfacing of the track. Couple other just miscellaneous photos. The bleachers, like I said, there. I think the next slide has a picture of the press box. You'll see in the top left, the brick on the outside of the outbuildings is already going up. The left side they've already installed in this photo and torn down. I think it's a panoramic shot, so I apologize. The color is not the best. I was hoping that would transfer a little better to see exactly what it entails. And then the field itself gives a really good view from atop the bleachers. It's a quick view. And last time we did a walkthrough with some board members, we were able to get on top of the visitor bleachers.
Uh-oh.
Out.
Are you there, Brian?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay. I can hear you.
Let me just double check on everybody real quick. Can everybody give me a thumbs up if you can hear everything? Okay, we're ready to move forward.
I'm sorry about that. Oh, saying my internet connection's unstable all of a sudden. But so this is a shot of the inside of the press box. This was pretty much a prefabricated component that got set with a crane on top of the bleachers. A picture of your site lighting kind of gives us an idea of just how those are pretty tall lights. I think anybody that's driven by on the highway has noticed those. Picture of your scoreboard for anybody that might not have seen it from the actual field side of things. And then the parking lot, of course, which we did do a temporary striping plan. Just felt that was the smart decision as the district definitely wanted. And I think all parties involved advised this was the way to go. We do still have the main office renovations to do and some additions for the existing library. We're turning into the main entrance. And then the link addition, just with all that work going on, it didn't make any sense to put topping down. So we do have temp striping currently. Lots of parking, it seems like. I know we're not at full capacity with students and staff, but it seems to be pretty good sized for the teachers thus far. The last piece we're going to talk about for ongoing work is the Area H link addition. At this point, we're really just working through putting foundations in. We're timing out the construction of this so we don't cut off access into the core.
Oh, lost you just a second, Brian. Just one second, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep.
Brian, you're back. There you go.
So here we're essentially building foundations from both existing buildings coming to the middle. And eventually we'll be closing off that gap between the buildings, which is allowing us in and out to finish the library. At this point, this construction, as well as the renovations in the north wing that tie into it, there's 2 stories there, 4 classrooms on each floor. Those will both continue on through summer. So that's the ongoing work. Upcoming future work, we have got main office renovations, which is zone 7 on that map. This will begin, this is the existing library will be turning into the new main office. This will begin pretty much piggybacking when we turn over the new library. So the district can move into the new library and then turn over the existing to us. Some of the other work that's coming up in the next year, we've got Area G 1st and 2nd floor renovations. This involves summer through winter work. We need a little bit more time here because we are tearing out a stairwell and filling it with steel and creating, I think, 7 or 8 classrooms all in one space. Next summer, we'll also be doing Area E 2nd floor renovations. I believe that's 4 classrooms on the 2nd floor. We take over at the beginning of summer and turn over at the end of summer, similar to this last phase. I did miss one on here. I realized right before the meeting, I apologize for that, but the family and consumer science area would fit in between the Area E and science wing portion. As soon as the new main office area we just mentioned above is done, scheduled for the summer of 21, we would begin the family and consumer science because the existing main office would move into the new main office, allowing us to then renovate the fax area. So, and then lastly, we've got the science wing east, which is zone 12, which we would do in the summer of 22. And that is kind of the overall summary for the high school project. The middle school project will be a little bit quicker of an update because we've only done just this summer's worth of work. But this has got similar phasing drawings, kind of give everybody an idea of what we're doing here for this project. We did begin this probably 2 weeks early because school was out a little bit earlier. But the work we got completed this summer was, first we started with the north parking lot entrance. This is the upper parking lot. The county, I believe, did some construction, and where it ties into your parking lots, we actually did some guardrail work, some drainage work, and new asphalt full depth replacement. The main portion of this summer's work was the art and tech room renovations, which were the
Just 1 second. The screen share just stopped, but I'll get it back up.
Oh, okay. I can keep going though. So that on that map, it's the green area. That you remember, anybody who's been in that space, it used to have stairs on one side, stairs on the other, but there was also a handicap elevator for wheelchair access there that I believe the district had many issues with over the years trying to maintain it. Well, what we did in this summer's project was we actually took out that set of stairs and that elevator, and we put in a ADA ramp and a set of stairs. So that got completed with all new terrazzo floors. And then 2 art rooms got renovated, pretty much just stripped down the walls, floors, and gave them a revamped space with updated plumbing fixtures, sinks, new layouts, things like that. On the technology side, we actually outfitted, they had an existing wood shop area and 2 technology classes. We gutted all of those, installed new flooring, new floors, new walls, new finishes, a lot of new equipment, a new dust collection system for that tech space. That's a picture right there of the tech space. But for this map, it's the green areas up top on that. And that is a rough picture of one of the wood shop area on the next slide. We also did an energy recovery unit up at the gym, which is still pending completion, but that was part of kind of looking at when we wanted to complete it. And we tackled it this summer, and we should be completing that here in the near future. So this is a photo of one of the art rooms. Like I said, new casework, new finishes, new window shades, new HVAC, kind of a whole revamp of the whole area for all 5 of those rooms.
But Brian, that's also trying to tie the same type of floor patterns in middle school to high school. Also trying, as we renovate all of our schools, bringing the blue, white, gray, and black in.
And all these spaces that we've turned over thus far have got new furniture as well. So this is the north parking lot, the upper parking lot kind of revamp that I had mentioned. There used to be a guardrail here, and I believe the pavement was in pretty rough shape. So we did full depth replacement. You see the new concrete island, new striping, and basically just full depth replacement, as well as some new drainage features to help with things.
And it makes it much safer going in and out of the middle school now.
So upcoming work and remaining work up at the middle school. I guess I'd be remiss if I didn't mention we did do quite a few electrical panel replacements this summer as well. But we will continue those on with this other future phasing, but we did replace, I think 8 to 10 panels over this summer. So we also have the cafeteria renovation. You'll remember we will be converting the 2 cafeterias into a single open space cafeteria with the ability to divide it, and kind of a hybrid, not quite one kitchen, but a hybrid kind of shared kitchen space to serve the areas. We will be infilling the courtyard between those 2 spaces with an addition. It's really going to be a roof addition structurally, new stage getting put in there, and all new finishes, new kitchen, similar to the high school. It's just got the element of the shared space with it. We also have science room renovations. I believe it's 6 science rooms along with the prep rooms. We'll be tackling those next summer. With that, we'll also be replacing some corridor ceilings. We'll be in classrooms underneath to feed the mechanical, plumbing, gas, electric from underneath up in through the casework. And then, of course, we also have the big south parking lot renovations. This involves full depth replacement for the majority of that parking lot. It involves a new canopy system at the entrance on the south end. I believe that's the intermediate school entrance. Is that
Yes.
correct, Tom? Yeah, so.
Yes, and
that is-
additionally, this will become the bus loop permanently, both AM and PM at both schools.
And there will be site lighting, there will be site drainage, and all of that tied in with that as well. And that's pretty much what we have for the middle school. I do have, I'm going to turn over to Chad, and I'm getting that my connection's unstable, so I'm going to turn it over to him quick. He's going to run through the upcoming phase 2 project, where we stand and what some of that scope entails.
All right, so this should just be a review here. We've been through quite a different few phases now. We've been through our schematic design, development, and contract documents. We have submitted those. Well, I'll get to the schedule on the next slide. So here, the scope really hasn't changed. We're doing a fair amount of mechanical upgrades out at Big Flats associated with those classrooms, and I believe what's called the B wing, the 200 wing. And that is associated with the flooring that's out there and the water issues, the moisture that's coming up through the floor. So we've got a floor moisture mitigation system going on out there, as well as the flooring and the casework and the associated mechanical lighting and ceilings. So there's a pretty decent sized project out at Big Flats associated with that, as well as we've got some more parking lot renovations for not the portion of the parking lot that's towards the street, but the one that's further out back towards the playground. And then we do have some minor playground renovations that are happening out there as well. Over to Center Street, if you recall, we did the mechanical system and quite a few roofs at Center Street. Not the mechanical system yet, but we did some mechanical upgrades there and roofs in the previous phase. So this phase, we're coming back and cleaning up the parking lot and doing some more parking lot renovations, expanding some parking out there and widening that drive because it just, you know, if you recall, there was a lot of issues with congestion out there when you got buses and you got parents, and that really isn't a great site to begin with, the Center Street site, for that mixing of parent drop off and pickup and busing. But by being able to widen that parking lot a little bit and giving some relief there, we think that it'll help make some improvements to that site flow and the flow of traffic and pedestrians. Moving over to Gardner Road. Gardner Road, this phase is the large roof replacement portion. So we're doing by as much as the 3 wings potentially. We do have some alternates out there as well, but it is a pretty substantial roof replacement job out there. And then some minor security improvements at the main entrance. We did some, if you recall, a few years ago as part of the secure entrance project. But this is, if you're familiar with the Gardner Road School, it's that large piece of glass that separates the vestibule from the main office. And obviously that creates some security concerns with all of that glass there, but it technically doesn't even meet the building code anymore. It doesn't meet the fire rating requirements. So we're taking that window glass system out. We're infilling it with an actual wall with punched openings, windows, transaction windows that'll allow interaction. So there'll still be a door that'll take you from, the setup will be essentially the same, but we're getting rid of all that glass. That's a code and a security issue. And then we've got some electrical improvements. We've got a transformer that we're replacing that's on the fritz as we speak. I believe if I were to speak for Mike Coughlin, we're literally on our last leg for that transformer. So it'll be good to get that transformer out or get that replaced, as well as some of the main electrical equipment that goes with that, the main distribution panel and some disconnects. So some pretty important electrical improvements that are occurring as well. Ridge Road, pretty extensive roof replacement again. We did some roof replacement in the first phase, but we're completing that project now. And I think if you can kind of get a sense here, if I'll digress here for a moment, the roof replacement, when we first started this whole referendum, the idea was to do some staggering. You know, the worst case scenario is we come in here and we do all of your roofs within a 1-year period, and then you're tied to this warranty that you're in this kind of perpetual cycle where you're expected as a district to replace all your roofs at the same time potentially. And I think as a team, as an admin team, we've done a really good job of trying to spread that out to begin to create some of that diversity in when those warranties expire, as well as the lifespans of those roofs. So that's kind of the strategy here with Ridge Road and Gardner Road is putting those roofs into the following phase. And then there is some minor parking lot renovations that are happening out at Ridge Road as well. I don't think there's any configuration changes out there as far as asphalt, but just it's outdated and it needs replaced, as anybody that probably frequents that parking lot often, they know. And then moving finally to the bus garage, we've got mechanical upgrades there, including the entire boiler plant. So we're replacing the boilers there, upgrading all of that. We're doing some mechanical upgrades in the office spaces as well. And then the major project out there is the parking lot and the parking lot lighting. So that whole parking lot right now is getting replaced, as well as upgrading that lighting to be more energy efficient. Briefly on the schedule, we're right on schedule with this project, which is fantastic. We've already received our first set of, we get 3 sets of comments from New York State, project manager, architecture, and engineering. We've already received the engineering comments, which were limited to 3 comments, which was fantastic. So we've already taken care of those and returned those to the state. We're awaiting our architectural, which I actually was expecting it this week. I'm kind of surprised. Maybe it'll still come in tomorrow, but I certainly think it's within the next 5 days that we see that, which keeps us right on schedule for our SED, maybe even a little bit ahead. We're delivering the documents to Welliver for estimating. And then, as I think Brian maybe mentioned early on in the presentation, the plan is to be out to bid with that in a nice early time frame right after the first of the year. And be able to hit the ground running in the spring. And we do believe that this is a 2-summer project. I don't think we've dug into kind of what we still need to work with the admin team to kind of phase this thing, what happens in what order, but it is a 2-summer project. And I think that brings us to the end. So if there's any questions, both Brian and Jeff and myself are here.
So open it up for any questions. Long presentation, but long overdue. And it's something to help set us up for a future discussion, because in our timeline, we are almost halfway through this that we are going to have to start thinking, after we know a little bit about the election, the coronavirus, maybe a vaccine, where we're at, because we have to look at the next, the second overall project out of the three that we initially started that started this one. So open it up for questions. Ms. Dale?
Sorry, does anybody have any questions? Or comments? I can't see everybody, Tom, because your screen, your share, social.
Oh, let me just stop the share real quick. Sorry about that. There you go.
Thanks. Brian?
Yes, thanks, Christine. I just wanted to, thank the team for putting this together. It's great to get this kind of detailed update. It's good to hear we're mostly on schedule, and it's certainly exciting to see the parts of the building that are very near completion. So it looks amazing. I think the kids, the students, the staff will be excited to get back in and see this these new structures, the cafeteria, the library, some of the new rooms. Certainly heard very positive things on those too, the classrooms already. So it looks fantastic. So thank you for the detail, and thanks for all the photos.
Thanks, Brian. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'll just add a little bit. So like Brian, thank you for all of that information. It's really exciting to see the work and to see the pictures and just to see how much things have changed since we did do the tour back in, I think it was August or so, July or August. So it looks really great. And thank you as well. I know, I've gotten a lot of questions from people regarding the stadium, oh, it looks like it's going to be done for the spring. And, and especially once the turf starts going down, people are going to think that we're going to be able to get out and use it quickly. So thank you for going through that, because it's, just when people start seeing the turf, there's a lot more that still needs to happen related to the track and things like that. So it was good to see that we are still on the timing to be able to have it turned over to us by the end of the summer. So our fall sports of 2021 will be able to use it at that point. But it's going to make everybody feel very anxious when they start seeing the early stages of the track and the turf go down here relatively soon.
Yeah, and Christine, I would like to echo, it's the hardest part about a track and turf installation is the time it takes to put the top coating and final touches on a stadium. And the track itself, once they get ready to even prep the surface that they're going to put down in a couple weeks, it requires 55-degree weather for an extended period of time and 0 to 2 mile an hour wind and heat in order to do it. And that's, I've seen it where it'll take 10 to 20 days up to almost a month and a half just to do 3 layers. And that's the frustrating part. But our big thing is the liability. Until the contractors can turn the entire site over to us, we cannot access it or utilize it because it's an insurance liability for the contractors. But more importantly, it's a major liability for the Horseheads community.
Okay. All right, well, we will move on. So again, thank you very much. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Douglas for his superintendent report.
Well, thank you, Ms. Dale. Thank you, everybody. And thank you for hunting Welliver. I know there's a lot of things to do. So if you sign off, Mike, you're welcome to stay, but I know you have many things to do as well. So please feel free if you need me. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, as part of my report, there's a lot of things going on in the region, in the state, and the nation. But first and foremost, I want to make sure I thank everyone from the staff, the administration, the board for tirelessly giving of your time, no matter what, to make sure Horseheads is taken care of. Especially on the education note, I know it's not easy from day one up till the current time, especially going in person and shifting to remote. Out of a need for health and safety, which many people have praised the district on, and we appreciate that. But we also have others that are not happy about that. Unfortunately, there are decisions that have to be made in the best interest of the entire community, and that is what Horseheads will do. But most importantly, I just really want to say thank you to the entire staff, the parents, and the community for making sure we take care of education for all of our students with what is probably the most atypical educational format that we could have. So you are all wonderful and doing all the hard work. And even when it's frustrating, take a step back and understand that we will try to assist in moving everyone forward. You know, there's been a lot of discussions in the area for the board on the COVID cases. And what happens is I want to show you a little bit about the data, because what happens is we always hear in the news, well, there's this new COVID alert cluster identification system. There's a red zone down, there's 3 red zones down on the island. There's a yellow zone in Broome. And Chemung, why is Horseheads closed? We're not in any of those situations. But if people really had the factual data that we have to look at every day, and it is available for them, and I'm going to show the board that data so you can get it, and you can go on and find it just by looking at a couple pieces. But that data helps you understand what's going on. And unfortunately, Horseheads was sort of the epicenter right at the start of the school with the biggest major cluster outbreak since the pandemic has started, besides in our unfortunate nursing homes in the area. And that it was with the Lighthouse cluster that ended up growing into some of our daycares, but into some of our gatherings, our golf courses, our prisons, CCC, now Elmira College, in addition to local gyms that people participate in. We want everybody to have those opportunities, but you have to understand that also impacts the operations of schools and regions, some more than others. We've even had it where certain parts of BOCES have had to sort of surgically look at it. And although we've tried to in a couple areas at the beginning, the number of cases we had in the district grew in roughly less than 4 short weeks up to 350 potential quarantines with over 20 positive cases. And I do not know of any other school district in the area that has had that. So I just want to take some time to show you 2 good sources so that people know that we've been told by the county executive in Steuben, as well as the county executive in Chemung, is one website called, exactly as I say it, COVID Act Now. And the other one is the New York State county level dashboard. So let me share the screen real quick. And I've got to pull it up. Where is it? COVID Act Now. Here is the one that gives us a large portion of information. And what happens is, again, this is COVID Act Now, America's COVID Warning Center. This is also run in conjunction with a couple of the major modeling firms, as well as some of the doctors that the governor is using on his vaccine research panel, as well as in conjunction with Johns Hopkins University, which has been doing major travel. And it is very easy to utilize, as it is web-based interactive. You can go anywhere in the United States, but we will zoom in on New York. And what it will do is give you specifically New York as a state's data set. It will also give you the data set for each individual county. And down here is the county that the governor keeps talking about: Rockland, Orange, and as you can see, King and Queens aren't even red anymore. But Rockland is considered the #1 county. But if you look up here, Broome is red. I think Tompkins is red. Oh, no, I think that's Schuyler. No, that's Cortland County. But if you look over here, Chemung is bright red. Steuben is orange. Tioga is orange. Schuyler is orange. But when you see red, that is a major concern. And unfortunately, as you go down, when you look at it, look, lo and behold, who's the #1 county in the entire state for daily cases per 100,000? We have, on average, 41.9 cases a day, which is leading Broome County, but they're in yellow at 35. Cortland at 38 per day, 31 per day. And then Rockland, where we hear so much, at 27 per day. Now, people talk about it that it's about density. But this whole calculation takes density out of the factor because it compares apples to apples by 100,000 and translates it. So to get more specific, because we've broken it down, you can go in specifically to Chemung County. And if you notice, it says Chemung County, COVID risk, active, imminent outbreak. And it starts to give you data, which is hard data. It's not rumor. It's something I work very hard at, as well as my whole team. Every single day, we very rarely go home because we're working on contract tracing to help our community, as well as to help our health department, which is overwhelmed at this point. But as you can see, we can go into Chemung County and we can go down to actually track. And since September 21st, I'm going to show you the thing, you can see where all of a sudden the county is. And notice, let me just go up. Notice the day that we closed for remote, we're almost at our peak. And right now we're past our peak. We're hoping we're on the downside, but we're also starting to come back up. So we've got to watch this data, because this is the critical data that people are looking at. In addition, it tells us what our infection rate is, and we know from the governor that anything above 1 means the virus is growing in strength. The higher above 1, the more exponentially it is growing. Right now, we are trending down, and these numbers change every day, but this is the projected path, and we want to see that because that will help us make our decisions as we go forward. As well as positive test rates, it gives us our percentage, and it tells us how we are doing with our ICUs. Right now, we have almost, I believe today, we have 24 people in the hospital in Chemung County, and not many people are really aware of that. But there's also another thing, which is, I will go to real quick, which is the New York positive results by county dashboard. This is a second device that we're using that correlates pretty closely with COVID Act Now, but this will allow you to see, where is that mountain that Governor Cuomo talked about that we climbed and came down? Well, it will let you see what's happening in each county. And remember, here's Broome counties. That's what's happening in Broome County. Well, here's Chemung County. Notice, we have a much different environment. Oh, and then we really want to compare it to Rockland County. Now you can see why Chemung County is the epicenter, but yet people are not talking about it. And unfortunately, that is something that is high risk for our students, our family, and our district. And that is why we are where we are at. Now, does it make it an easy decision? No. And that's one of the discussions that we will have tonight. I want to stop this share, but I also want to bring up another share that sort of gives you a cleaner picture, if I can find it. Let me see, where is it? Okay, and this is sort of the comparison of all that information. We have our Chemung County numbers, which you can see on the Facebook every single day. And let me just shrink this down just a little bit. And what happens is, this is what you hear on their Facebook page. But what's next is, this is the daily amount here from the COVID Act Now. Each day, the number of cases that federally have been reported, the daily case per 100,000, the positivity rate, the ICU, and the infection rate. This area in blue is just the trend line. That's all it indicates. The reason this is shaded green with both of these is because we have been told at every meeting that 3% in these categories is where we should target doing something drastic to change the course. Because once you get above 3%, it starts to exponentially grow and get out of control. So as you can see, here is Chemung County's numbers. We peaked on the 6th at 7% positivity rate. On the dashboard, 7.1%. And notice we went remote. Now, why is this important? Because on another, I would just want to compare it and show you. Here's the actual dashboard. Here's Chemung. Here's Steuben and how we compare. And you can see we're much worse than Steuben. We are even worse than Broome. And they were designated yellow at 4.6. But we're over here at 7.1%. Almost double the amount of growth that they are having. And then if you want to compare us to Rockland, they're at 6.3 and they're supposed to be entirely shut down. And we're even higher than that. Now, that's just an example. There's also the COVID Act Now so that you can see the same thing. More or less, a lot of this is just showing that each of these start to paint the actual real picture that we can say, based on fact and data, just like our governor preaches, is how we should inform ourselves and try to protect our students and most vulnerable populations, our students that have medical issues, but on top of it, our parents, our grandparents, and overall the Horseheads community. Some people have asked, well, you're not doing your job as a superintendent because Elmira's open or Elmira Heights is open. I can't worry about Elmira or Elmira Heights. They have different circumstances, and on top of it, they have different problems that they're superintendents. We all work endless hours, and we work tirelessly to overcome and deal with ours and be as creative as possible. But health and safety is our number one thing. But when you start comparing us to Rockland County, you can see their infection rate is 1.06. We're even above them. And right now, they are below that spread rate. We are projected just be at the spread rate on the 13th, which is today, and we've set the 23rd as our time because it's 14 days out, sort of following what the governor said. Just so that you know, so that the board can understand that we also keep track of our district cases. We need to know how many staff are quarantined or symptomatic, and understand that anyone quarantined or symptomatic is in a quarantine for 14 days or until they get cleared, and that impacts us. Now, we do it weekly, but it doesn't mean that, oh, this week we had 1, 5, and 0. What it means is we had 1, 5, and 0, or 1 positive and 5 quarantine of district staff. Well, the next week we have to stack these. We had 2 positives, 11 quarantine, and 2 symptomatic quarantines. And then just like recovery, it takes us about 2 or 3 weeks to take people off of this. And then more people came on. Well, you can see on the week of 10-5, I all of a sudden had a spike of 26 staff members to 36 staff members into quarantine on top of already 13 and another 16. That, I mean, if you're looking at it, that's almost 60 to 70 staff members quarantine in the district, and it becomes unsustainable. And that is what led us to this point. That may not be the case in other districts. I have yet to see, when we look at it, our elementary numbers, our secondary numbers, and our weekly totals. When you start looking at the week that we shut down, we had in quarantine 70, 81, 84, another 90, 100. We had almost 200 people just in less than 2 weeks in quarantine, or 7 to 10 people positive just in student population. That becomes problematic. If by chance everybody stays safe between now and the time we're hoping to be able to consider reopening, we would look at what we have through quarantining and know that across this, if everybody else and nobody else became infected or quarantined, we would be coming back to 2 people that would still be positive and 20 people across our district that would be in quarantine. Now, we know people are not just going to get 100% better. And that is one of the reasons why we need everyone's help to fill out our screening surveys every single day. And I will be putting out a video tomorrow to ask people all next week to be filling that out, so our nurses and our staff who are still working almost around the clock to keep track and keep us safe, that they can record and help people stay in quarantine and also get back to school. It's important. If you are sick, stay home. If you are sick, stay home, go to the doctor, get tested. But do not come in until you know those symptoms are non-COVID related and you have the proof of that, because that's how we keep our organization open. If we wear upon the whole organization, it would shutter again, even if we reopen. And that's what the governor's worried about. And that's what we're all worried about. So we need everybody to work together. And we may have to toy with 100% mask for a couple of weeks when we come back, so that we aren't worried as much about the breaks. We'll try to help the kids and staff out, but masking works. Social distancing works. Also, the biggest thing that works, go home, stay home, and do not intermix or gather. That is the number one thing that's causing the biggest outbreaks: small family social group gatherings. So please be aware that all impacts us. So that's sort of a roundabout look at the data. And all of this does have an impact on health and safety and our budget. But right now, before I do my last couple of pieces, do any of the board members have any questions in regards to what I've shared? Because we will have to have a discussion of the board. What does the next couple of weeks look like? Do we bring everybody back all on one day? Do we phase it in? And I'd like to have that discussion with the board after we get through with my section. Any questions? And let me stop the share real quick so you can see everybody.
Shayla?
I don't really have a question. I just want to clarify what Dr. Douglas said, that if you're sick, and you go to your doctor, you should call your PCP and tell them your symptoms. Do not go to a walk-in or anything like that. Have a virtual visit with your PCP so you don't expose anybody else.
And thank you very much, Shayla. I'm thinking just strictly from our end. I know Dr. Raymond's there. Shayla, you're a nurse as well. We appreciate that, but we want to keep everybody safe, and I think your advice is well taken. Telemedicine is one of the biggest things Guthrie's doing right now. So not a plug for just Guthrie, but everybody's doing. I think, Doug, you had a question?
Yeah, I have a few things. Do you know where the Act Now county data comes from?
The Act Now county data, all of it comes from the data warehouse. That you know how Johns Hopkins does the transferring of all information. So it's constantly being modeled because, as you can see, some of the data from Chemung and then the data between the dashboard and COVID Act don't necessarily always align, but they're very similar and close. And they actually go up and down each day just because of the fact that there will be people that are identified in Chemung County that later have to be coded to another county, and in other counties coded to Chemung. So that is some of the transient nature because our health departments have never really worked on data this way. But the one piece from COVID Act Now is a national database that they're using that all health departments are supposed to be reporting to.
Okay, I would just be concerned not knowing that data, it's not official data. And if it's using modeling, that means it's not raw actual data. They're applying some algorithm or formula to it. Not to say, I agree with a lot of what you're saying, Dr. Douglas, and I would emphasize that we as a community need to pull together and get more serious about masks and social distancing and not hanging out with our friends if we, not hanging out with our friends. The one thing on the data that you showed on counties, you showed like Broome in yellow, and you showed Rockland in red on your spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Am I mistaken in understanding though that those aren't county designations, those are zip code designations?
No, right now, those are county designations because we do not have access to any zip code information. What's interesting, and you bring out a point, we've been told all this information about the data, and then all of a sudden at the governor's level, the data keeps shifting. First, it was by the region as we've closed down. Now it was by the county. Now it's by the zip code. So what happens is you're spreading it out and you're saying, oh, well, only this group has to be closed where the rest do not. But yet we cross zip codes relatively quickly. We cross counties, but not as quickly. We cross states, but not as quickly, except if you're in the southern tier, because Pennsylvania is 5 miles away.
Okay. It was my understanding, maybe I'm wrong, that the governor was designating zip code areas as yellow, orange, and red, not counties.
He is trying to, but Rockland County, the zip code there pretty much encompasses most of the county, he said. So what happens is you get some convolution of the data, that red, yellow, green, and to date, they have not been able to explain or identify any of the numbers or give us the data set so that we could look at what is the 14845 zip code. That's the problem.
But so far, New York State is not, as you said, designated our primary zip code as yellow, orange, or red.
Nope.
Okay. And my understanding from Broome County is they have identified the zip codes there as yellow or orange.
Well, they've identified a zip code of yellow, but they haven't provided any resource or any help for that zip code. And they've created confusion there because they're saying it's Broome County, it's Broome or the city of Binghamton, but yet it's not. That's the whole point. We either need better guidance on what we need to look at, or we have to use the data that they provide us, and this is the data that they provide us. But it does give us a very good picture of what's going on in our area. As we have, how many zip codes do we have in Chemung County? Is it 3 or 4?
I don't know. It's at least 4. I think there's 3 or 4 in Elmira alone. Okay. The one table you're showing from the state website with the bar chart and the trend line, I think is a little misleading. If you look at the left-hand side of it, those are just raw numbers on the side, on the left-hand side. That's not a per 100,000 type figure. Yeah.
Actually, Doug, let me show you.
Okay.
Okay. What happens is I don't look at these numbers. I go to the specific data set for each day. How many people tested, number of persons tested, percentage positive, and there's the all important one, 7-day rolling average. That's the key metric right there.
Okay. But I'm just saying, when you compare county to county, like you were showing on the website, the number of total persons tested is a flat number, so it can make a spike in a relatively less populated county look worse.
Well, actually, it's balanced out because you're doing everything by 100%, 100,000 population. We have 83, so it is sort of apple to apple, where if you're 100,000 county and you got 40 cases, you'll be identified as 40 cases. If you're less than 100,000, say 80%, it will adjust, no different than tax rates or anything else. So everybody's compared equally and on the same footing of rolling average. That's how it's been explained to us.
Okay. Well, all I'm seeing is on that left-hand axis, it says total persons tested. It's a flat, it's an actual number. And when you compare that to Rockland and to Broome counties, which are more populated than us, our spike looks, or our increase looks worse. When you use the term quarantine, are you talking about Chemung County Department of Health quarantines or the district quarantining people?
For us, it's the district's quarantine. The Chemung County stopped doing quarantines about 7 or 10 days ago because they were getting too large.
So I guess I would just caution, quarantine is it's a legal term from the law and refers specifically to Department of Health and the agency putting people essentially on the sidelines. And when we use that, though, it makes it sound like the county has designated all these people. And you're talking about, when you are talking about quarantining people, of course, you're talking about positive cases. And you're talking about direct and close contacts as well?
We are talking about anybody that would have to service an isolation or quarantine. And unfortunately, a lot of the talking to people and everything has fallen upon the school districts or other agencies and is not being communicated always as expeditiously by the county because they are overwhelmed. And they basically always say that we will support your decision going out. So no, we don't quarantine. We tell them that we expect the isolation of 14 days and the Department of Health will be contacting you. We do turn it all over to them, but they do have to meet those guidelines.
Aren't you also holding out employees and students if they are in a household with somebody who's symptomatic?
We have had indirect contacts that we've asked to isolate out of an abundance of caution because we've been seeing them turn positive.
And on top of that, the state has released guidance that says that people can return to school or to work either through an alternative diagnosis or through a COVID test directed by their healthcare provider. My understanding is that the district is still requiring both a negative COVID test and a doctor's note.
Superintendents of Chemung County have agreed we are not adjusting to that lower standard as it puts everybody in a health risk, as well as most of the doctors will not do anything that we have been informed without having a test because it puts them on the line if they make an alternative diagnosis and they come up COVID positive. That has been one of the major concerns in the area.
But I just want to make the point that all of this is contributing to what the district is calling quarantining and to these large numbers you're talking about, where in Steuben County for weeks now, they've allowed either a doctor's note or a negative COVID test, and their quarantine or their people that are put out of work or school, I assume are lower as a result.
Yeah, and legal counsel has advised us that we cannot do what Steuben County is. It goes directly against the New York State Department of Health, and nor will we violate the law.
But since then, for the last week or so, New York State guidance has been identical to my knowledge of what Steuben County has been doing.
It's been not totally identical.
Okay, but the general principle I'm talking about of
Yes.
either a doctor's note or a negative COVID test
Yes.
adopted by the state.
It's not adopted by the state anywhere. It's just put into writing, and that's how it's been explained by our county executive as well as our director of health. And our legal advice that we must follow does not necessarily entirely agree with it. And unfortunately, in your position, you have to deal with multiple counties.
Right. Well, I guess my point is that the district is deciding, for whatever reason, combination of reasons, to go beyond state guidance, which has been vetted by, worldwide professionals and experts, as Governor Cuomo keeps on saying, and we're going well beyond that, is my point.
Not well beyond it, one step beyond for families that have contact within their household. That's not well beyond it, Mr. Johnson. I'm sorry. That is high risk of individuals that could bring it in and expand pervasive disease into our schools.
Yes, but it's all about managing risk, right? And
Yep.
the state has said this is a safe way to operate, otherwise they wouldn't have put it out, and the district is going beyond that. That just
Yeah.
needs to be clear to the public.
Yeah, oh, yeah, absolutely, for the health and safety of everybody here.
Right. And I guess my overall point is just that we need to be clear as clear as we can. And I appreciate your discussion today, Dr. with the public, because especially underprivileged families in our community are much more devastated by school closures than any other group of people. And they're the ones that are having difficulty with childcare, working multiple jobs, and this impacts them a lot more. And I go back to what I said in July in terms of going from our survey results where 53% of parents wanted to be in person. Now, maybe that number has changed. I don't know if the district has any data to support that there's been a huge shift in that. But I am concerned that those families are paying a bigger price as a result of these closures.
And that is the unfortunate thing about this. I agree. We would all love to be 100% in school every single day, which that's what that number of 53% was. That is not possible and unfortunate. We are working on a possibility of some child care initiatives here, especially when we're on remote. That's why by the governor's order, we had to put out the daycare listings after we went to remote because they do have sliding scales. I will tell you, we have received massively far more individuals thanking us for looking at it because people were scared in the area from the rise from hardly having above 30 or 40 cases at our high to being well over 209, 210 cases. And they do understand that, but we also have a lot of resources that we have put into place where we have less than, I think it was 70%, I think it was less than 2 or 3% with less internet connectivity, where we have personally gone out to make sure that they're connecting. Although nothing is easy, everybody has been participating, and we have not had a lot of negative feedback from that, although I'm sure it could be out there silently. Dan?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you walking us through all the data and sharing that information. I think that was helpful to see.
And I will send that out to you afterwards. I've just got a rough document right now.
Yeah, and I mean, I have to start my comments and questions by saying, of course, what I want is safety, is paramount, and no one would question that. But I think, and where I'm struggling a little bit or trying to understand is most of what we just talked about was focused on our county, right? And all of the data in our county, which would include lots of places outside of our district, right? And to me, the question is really around the impact on specifically the district and why the district had to take the action it did. I know that's informed by what's happening in the county kind of writ large, but I have the same questions. I've had the questions posed to me as to why, Corning, I saw today Corning Painted Post Middle School is closed for a week or more because of COVID and from a remote learning, but their high school's not, for example. And so I think people rightly have questions when they see that, well, I can, according to the state and according to the Department of Health, as long as I wear my mask and I follow the rules, I can go to the grocery store, I can go to church, I can do a lot of different things. And I think we need to be careful, but if we're following the safety protocols and we're wearing masks and we're socially distancing, and those who are truly concerned, you mentioned, for example, individuals who have a medical issue. Well, they always had the issue of being fully remote anyway, to try to take themselves out of that risky population. So for doing all those things, I'd like to understand better specifically why, how it impacts the school. Is it a function of the staff, you mentioned not having staff because they're in quarantine as that was described? What is the specific impact on the school that requires the closure?
When all of a sudden you're missing almost 50 to 60 staff members on a given day and not able to get full sub coverage, whether it's in the schools or whether, like, we had a situation where we lost 6 bus drivers and we're already down 14 bus drivers because nobody wants to be a bus driver, that has potential implications. I will tell you, our parents were wonderful. I hated even asking them, but they had to transport on those runs, and they did. Now our buses are up, and then we lost 3 to 5 more bus drivers, and we've lost, I think, 1 today. So those all weigh into it, either on transportation, but most importantly on the academic piece. And if we're following all of these contract tracings and our staffing all of a sudden becomes very short, and we cannot cover it, our staff, if they have to quarantine, they can work from home. Well, they're willing to work from home, but I can't run a business when I've got all the kids coming in and have the classroom unattended because we don't have somebody there. So it sort of paints you into a corner. That's the hard part. Staffing has always been the key that a lot of superintendents said will be the first bane. The really first one that we thought is it goes through a bus garage and you're sort of done. Sort of like Cicero, North Syracuse found out 2 days ago, one driver took out 15 drivers, which shut down their system. For us, it was 6. We didn't shut down our system because our families were able to assist us. But we had to make all those calls because we were cohorted on other days. Now, if it would have went through the entire bus garage, we would have probably had to shutter because I can't imagine everybody being able to do that. So remote gives us the opportunity to take a pause and try to get things back to a more even keel, both for our faculty, both for our students, for health and safety, and the community.
Okay, so I appreciate that response, and if you'll indulge me for, so, sure. But what that sounds like is we had to close because we didn't have the staff, not we had to close because our county was in a certain range of cases, for example. And I know
that helps guides us, Mr. Christmas. What it does is it gives us an idea of what's going around us. That information is what's going around us, but the clusters were what's going on in the district, right? And that information and that cluster goes outside the district as well, but a lot of it was centered here, just like other clusters outside the district come into the district. like Elmira College, 156 students. Well, if they're coming into the area, they're playing recreational sports or they're shopping in the area and they come into contact, that spread happens. And when we're tracing, what happens is we had a student that was just in one of the isolations, okay? Because they were indirect contact of a student at BOCES who was positive. Well, 3 days later, luckily we put that person in isolation because 3 days later, all of a sudden the person developed symptoms, right? But it was already before, I'm sorry, I said that. 3 days later, we found out the person was positive, but they didn't tell us they were having symptoms on, I believe it was Saturday, which means you go 2 days back, which means every class that they were in on Thursday, Friday, and every teacher they came into contact with had to now be contact traced. And that was 5 days out or 6 days out. And that's where the problem is. If contract tracing is behind, which it is, it sort of blows up on you quick. It's like we've had situations where when you look at the data, you'll all of a sudden see 130 people recovered, right? You think, how could everybody recover on the same day? Well, what it is people may be contract tracing. They have the system, but it took them so long to contact trace that their 10-day quarantine is up the very next day. So you're positive today because you had to wait for your testing. Your symptoms came 9 days back, and day 10, you're recovered now. And what happens is now you have to go back and try to do that contact tracing for 9 days. For a school, that's a nightmare scenario.
Well, it's my understanding that if you're within a certain, within the 6 feet and unmasked for a certain period of time, that's when you're considered to be a close contact and to be impacted. But so if we're following our protocols around distancing and mask wearing, I don't understand why it sounds like you're saying, this one person and then they're impacting all these around them. But if we're following the protocols, shouldn't it be minimizing that impact?
Well, that's one of the common misconceptions is if you have a mask on and it's under 15 minutes, you don't have to. It all depends on the circumstances. It depends on, did anybody take off the mask? Did one person positive? Did anybody have their mask on, but were an extended period of time beyond an hour? Like our high schools are 80-minute classrooms. So even if you were masked and somebody was in that room, all of them now become direct contacts. So every situation is a nuanced situation. And hopefully it's like right now, I could go in and talk to Caitlin with our masks on and be in there 10, 15 minutes, 6 feet apart. And sorry, Caitlin, say Caitlin's positive. They would contact me. They may say, well, were you both masked? Were you 15 minutes apart? Were you 6, 9, 10 feet apart? And then they'll make the determination. But we can't make that determination. We need the county health department. Sometimes they say, nope, indirect contact. Sometimes they say, yeah, it's too close. You've got to do it. Sometimes one person takes off their mask and then they say that. And then once they take off that mask in that situation, everybody gets sort of hung up. So we turn it over. We have to get the information from the agencies. I can tell you, Chemung's doing the best job they can, but they are overwhelmed right now. We talk to Schuyler County, we get something in two hours. We talked to Steuben County, we've gotten something rather quickly. And that's not a knock on anybody, but a lot of cases were right here. Now, in the data, our cases are starting to come down. Let's hope that it stays that way. But we don't need another cluster. And what did we get? Another cluster last night that hopefully is not as big as the earlier church, but if it is, it's only 2 miles away from the district. That's the issues.
Yeah, well, I know I don't want to max or take up all the time. No, I also don't. I'm no expert. All right, I don't want to debate mask wearing protocols, but I think of course safety is paramount, right? But then I think we have to be, and Chemung County was uniquely impacted because of that initial cluster. And let's hope it comes down to the steps that are being taken. And I hope, and I don't have any doubt about how hard everyone in the district is working to try to address this, and everyone would like to get people back. I think though, or I'm certainly hopeful that by following the safety protocols, we'll be able to get back to at least the hybrid schedule that we had. And for those who are uncomfortable with it, they can switch to remote. Because I do think for all the reasons we've talked about, it's important to try to have kids in there, even if it's just 2 days. So I think we just want to be really transparent with that and help the public understand why we had to take the steps that we took. And tonight is certainly helpful in that regard. So thank you for sharing all that information.
I appreciate both yours and Doug's comments. I think, you know, the hard part about being a superintendent is sometimes you have to make a decision with very little time, and you make that decision and then you get your board together. And that's what tonight's about, is to have that discussion. And I'm seeking guidance from you on how to bring everybody back, as well as guidance of, do we stage it and do we bring them all back at once? Do we sort of like what you said, Mr. Christmas, is we bring them back, and if people want to go to remote, go to remote. I worry about that at times, but I certainly understand it. And I know several people have already said, that's okay, I'm going to remote anyways. I mean, we've been hearing that as it goes. So, but that is an individual choice, and it is better to have the kids back. I'd love them back in mass every day, but right now, until a couple things happen, we've got our election and a vaccine development and treatment development. Until we see movements on all three of those, it becomes very challenging, but hopefully that will clear itself up in the next month or so. Other questions? Hey, Warren.
Is there a question on the table, or are we just having a discussion? Like, are you asking us?
Well, I
should we
was going
open
to.
again, or what?
Yeah, I was going to, but I wanted to get, because I gave that presentation, I wanted everybody to be able to either question, sort of like Doug and Dan asking those questions, and also giving some of their thoughts too, because that helps all of us. So if no one else has a question right now, we're hoping that the trend lines, as you saw from the data for the county, tend downward. If they continue downward, it's pretty easy. You start to bring people back. The question is, do you bring everybody back at once? Because here's the only, it's sort of, I tell all my fellow superintendents, the glitch to when you go to remote is you lose the daily contact for keeping track of the virus. And what happens is we're going to reach out next week to try to build that. But that tells us, all of a sudden, do we open our doors and all of a sudden have 7 or multiple positives come in? I don't think that will be the case. Our community has been very good and will emphasize that same piece. But do we consider maybe, you know, the week of the 25th, we bring back special needs population and our pre-K through 4. The next week, 5 through 8. The next week, high school. Or do we bring everybody back at once? I mean, that's what I'm looking for guidance on if we continue along this trend. If we go up, I will certainly send you the data showing that the area is going up and ask if you'd want to reconsider any potential direction at that time. So I guess that's the question, Warren. Thoughts? Go ahead, Warren.
So I'm kind of reluctant to maybe a slow phase in, whatever you think in that area, but people made comments about we're going to follow our protocols. And I agree, we've been following our protocols. The problem is people are outside of our confines, are going to restaurants, are gathering in groups. We don't know what they're doing. And then they come in to our environment and maybe they wear the mask, but they still can be carriers. So until we can control the outside behavior, which we can't, I think it's really difficult to continue bringing people in large groups together. When we just said people should be staying home and not gathering with their friends, but we're going to gather multiple, 50, 70, 100 people at the same time. So that's where I stand on that.
Please just go ahead and unmute yourself. Go ahead, Dr. Raymond.
Yeah, so I understand, this dilemma in regards to phasing in, but I think what I understood was that if you're going to phase in one school, like elementary and then the middle and then high, I don't know if that is going to help. I think because there are two different, blocks, people coming together. If they have to be phased in, I think they have to be phased in. I don't know how we can phase in just in elementary and middle and all, but all should be phased in gradually so that there's not too many people coming in at the same time. But I don't know how we can achieve that. That may be a logistical issue.
Well, our bus runs do help a little, okay? Our bus runs run by elementary and intermediate school all on one run. And then the other run is middle school and high school. So you could practically put out like the elementary school run just for the pre-K through 4. And you could put out the high school run just for the middle school. Or you could put out a bus run just for pre-K through 4 and a separate bus run for, I've got a little flexibility there. But I didn't know if it's because and one of the things I forgot to say, Warren, is this is the sort of information we've gleaned. A lot of our positives have not necessarily been first glance students. Our positives now are starting to be those direct contacts to parents or adults that have put themselves in situations, and then all of a sudden the student has sort of ramped through it because of either the household and so forth. We have not seen a lot of initial contacts, oh, the student is positive, which goes to the thing, our adults are getting tired of certain things and they're going out, they're trying to live their lives, no fault. But we have not seen a lot of it starting from the student level. But I don't know if that's changing now because we're starting to get more students that have turned positive further contact. That's what this sort of drawdown does. By bringing back potentially the younger to the older, the olders can handle the remote a little easier. The youngers cannot. The special needs cannot. So that's where our mind was at first if we did something staggered. Now, would it be you bring back, say, pre-K through 4, and then you bring back, after everybody gets through one cycle, 5, 6, then 7, 8, then 9, 10. That's a longer period, but it's 4 weeks. That can wear on people too. So if anything, it would probably be, if you did it over 3 weeks, that shortens it. It would be pre-K through 4, 5 through 8, because you have your elementary runs already, and then adding in your high school. But there's no right answer, or you can just say everybody comes back at the same time. It's I hate to say it, it's like going to Vegas and trying to figure out which one's going to hopefully impact the school the less and let you move on quicker. So others' thoughts?
Dr. Douglas, I agree with you about the special needs coming back and then starting with the smaller classes coming back. But then you have siblings in
that's the hard part
too. So how do we minimize exposure with that part?
And you bring up a good point. The reason we did the whole district was exactly that discussion. We were looking at the middle school and high school and intermediate school. And we were trying to figure out a way if we could keep the most vulnerable, the special ed, in the pre-K through 4. But then our discussion really focused on, every one of these kids, once you get intermediate school and middle school, you have crossover. And that's where we've seen in the off days, we've seen some positives in the lower level schools. So that's the hard part. Hopefully they're all going to sort of go away because those kids are not as apt to be out and about. Others,
Yeah.
Doug, Christine?
I'll wait. I'll give everybody else a chance. Brian?
So I guess I would lean, if you did do a phase strategy. I mean, keep it as short as possible. Maybe you can just break into 2 groups. I mean, I'd hate to stagger it so much the poor high school kids, are, if the first contingent comes back October 26th and the poor high schoolers don't come back till December 1st, that's just too far out. I don't know if you can do it in 2-week chunks. I'm
Right.
certainly very concerned. Thank you for sharing the data. I personally feel when the county's in the 6 to 7% positivity rate, that is way too high in my mind, and I'm glad we're closed down at this point. So I'm hoping that we can be 3% or lower, by the time you look to reopen here in a week or so, and we are trending better. So I think there's a very good chance. And then Steuben County still has pockets too, and I know there's some overlap between the 2 counties, but they're trending a little lower too. So I'm hopeful in the next 10 days it gets turned around. But certainly at the 6 to 7% range, I think there's too much transmission in the community. I think it really safety's jeopardized at this point. But I think the phase in, I'd start with the younger kids, just like you said, the special needs, and I'd like to see it over 2 weeks if you could, just to get maybe the high school kids 1 week later than the first.
Yeah, and I just got news. Bradford is now closing and shuttering their 7 through 12 building. Don't know how long, but what's happening is everybody knows this is building. That's the hard part. Hopefully we're suppressing our area, but that's the same concerns I have. I know Ms. Chavez has to step away. So any last thing, Shayla?
No, I'm good.
Doug?
Well, first of all, if we have written legal advice from an attorney on our protocols versus the state guidelines and protocols, I would be interested in seeing that.
We only have a conversation. We did not ask for them to draft a legal review.
Okay. I think that the closure is having a devastating effect on our economy, on underprivileged families with special needs kids. It's having an effect on mental health throughout the area and socialization. I think we should follow state guidelines, and I think we should reopen all at once and help alleviate some of these issues that are caused by closure. And hopefully the data and the trends will support that as well. But obviously, if it gets out of hand, we have tools to be able to address that.
Dan?
I share the view that I think I would try to have as compressed a phase-in schedule as possible, or all at once. I mean, I think it's a question of what the medical professionals would say and what the state guidelines would be. I would follow those. I mean, we'll never, unless the county shuts down, unless we're not going to take away the risk of exposure outside of the school. And I don't think that's a basis for us to not, once it comes down to the acceptable range. I agree, it's too high right now and we did the right thing. I'm just saying, I think if it comes down, then I'd like to see us try to resume for the reasons Doug just identified, and I would try to get everybody in as quickly as possible.
Just a couple comments that I have related to it. I agree. I think if we are going to do the phased approach, we need to shorten that timeline, because it's hard on everybody, If we go with the phased approach, I agree, starting with special needs and the younger students. I do agree that I think those are the students that are at the highest risk for 100% remote, because they're not getting that teacher interaction, and it's very difficult to put a young child in front of a screen all day long. So, if we do the phased approach, I would be in favor of special needs and the younger students first, but then get the secondary in as quick as possible. They're all missing out as well, and it's impacting their education and their socialization as well. But at the end of the day, the data has to tell us, and I agree. I think the closure was the right decision based on the data and based on everything that was happening around us in the county. Our number one priority is the safety. And so, I do agree that we made the right decision. But I'm hopeful that the data will continue to come down. We still have another, week and day to take a look at that before, making that announcement of what the plan is come the week of the 26th.
So if I can suggest, there's basically two things. Bring everybody in is one thing on the table at the same time, or the other is do some type of phase approach in a short and compressed timeline to get people in, as long as and in both situations, as long as the data is showing that we're coming down and getting into that 3% or below range. Is that what I'm hearing from everybody? Is there any direction that the board specifically wants me to take, one or the other? Because I don't want you to vote on it, but if you need to, you guys will need to decide.
Yeah, I think, one of the things, and I'm trying to, kind of go through it in my head. I don't know what it buys us by phasing it. I don't know if that's an advantage or not. I mean, I know getting the special needs and younger kids in as soon as possible is necessary, but I don't know if it buys us anything by holding the other students back for another week or two, or however long that is. And maybe it does, and I just can't see it right now. But I don't know if it buys us anything to phase.
Yeah, see, and I don't know either. Doug, I think you had something.
Yeah, just since we do have a student representative on the board, I don't want to call Sarah out if she doesn't really want to weigh in on this, but I would be interested to hear what she has to say about it.
Based on like the whole like closure experience, or like based on like having like students returning back into school, or how are we?
I guess I'd just be interested on what you're thinking about returning to school, phasing versus coming back and things like that.
I feel like right now, definitely not having everybody going back. Like there's definitely like, because if you put everybody back, it's just most likely going to end up going back downhill. And we don't want to like push that. Like the way like we opened up New York into like the 4 phases, I feel like that's something that the school can apply that into our daily life for like going like little by little, because students do need to get back into school. I agree with like the special needs and those who need the more help. They do need to get back into the school. And I just feel like putting everyone all at once would just cause more problems, and just working our way into like stepping back and looking at the situation and really taking consideration on like, how is this going to affect us? Are we going to be going back into closure because of this? And I just feel like students are wanting to get back, but we also understand that our safety is our #1 priority, and we just want to stay healthy and be able to make it through this experience.
Thanks, Sarah.
No problem.
So Christine, the only thing I would ask is just one final direction. Is everybody okay if I guess I would do it 2 ways. If the data comes down rather quickly, I would probably phase it in or bring them all back, especially if the data plummeted. I do not believe that will be the case, but I would always hope. But if the data is going in that trend and keeps going in that trend, even if we're above, we would probably try to target the special needs, our elementary first in that first week, and then secondary in that second week. Can the board get behind that?
Yes, I can.
In a consensus model, I could support that ultimately.
And really, look at, there's no right or wrong answer here. We're just trying to do the best for everybody. And that's the one thing I love about this board and the district. We always have the discussions. It's not personal. It's basically for the betterment of Horseheads. And I commend you all. And Sarah, I especially commend you. It's not easy being put up there, but you gave an honest answer and we appreciate it. That's really, your mom should be proud. And I know, look at, your mom deals with it over at St. Mary's Our Mother. I mean, we have conversations. This is not easy on anybody, but we'll try to make it the best we can for everybody. So we'll keep an eye on the data and we'll go through that. And that's all I have on that. The only other 2 things I have is just reminding the board about looming budget deficit. although we could be potentially having savings if we didn't do a lot, even though we're trying to still do everything, and the board has been great that if we have to use some reserves at the end to balance this out, we will, just because it's that time. This is what they're for. But we have to be very cognizant that a 20% reduction if the governor does not get help is $6.8+ million if he takes it back. We cannot survive that even with reserves. On top of, we've spent 2.5 plus just for health, safety, and everything. So you're looking at that range that we're going to try to cover. And we're still trying to do all the things we can as much as possible for our students. So we just have to really make sure we're putting pressure on our federal legislative and our state legislative, because if they do this to every school as we know it will forever be changed. There's no way schools can take this type of a hit. And the last thing I say is, it's more personal from me, my team, my staff, myself, our teachers, we look at trying to do the best we can for our students and our community, no matter what. We sacrifice, and that everybody's sacrificing right now. But this is very important to all of us, and we give tireless, endless amount of time, as you all do, to your works and your profession and your families. But we have to understand that there are people that will sit there and criticize any decision we make, and we have to keep the eye on the prize, doing the best for Horseheads and making sure that we follow the best course of action together and not be separated and fragmented by issues that are really individual issues. So I want to thank you all, and I want to thank this community for being such a great community. So thank you. That's my report.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Douglas. I'll go into our board reports, but before I do that, some of what I'm going to say will probably echo some of the things that Dr. Douglas just said and others did, but I just wanted to kind of get my thoughts down and just kind of put a public statement out as to kind of my thoughts about what's going on and kind of on behalf of the board. So, one, I just want to take the time to thank, everyone in the district, staff, the administration, the students, the community members, the families, for your patience and your understanding. I mean, this is a really difficult time for all of us. And, there's not anybody in our district who is untouched by what's happening. Our number one priority is the safety of our students and our staff, hands down. And because of that, difficult decisions have been made, and those decisions have been made based on data. All of us have had to make sacrifices. All of you have had to make sacrifices. Our staff is working in an environment that's constantly changing every single day. There's nothing normal about what any of our staff is doing right now. Our students are missing out on important experiences, and my heart breaks for them. It really is. It's not like they can get these experiences back. So these experiences are changing for them, and it's really hard. None of that is taken lightly, and the decisions that are being made are not easy. And our decisions are not based on convenience. They are tough decisions, and they're being made based on the data. Everyone has their own circumstances that are important to them, but the district needs to continuously look at the big picture, because there's so many different moving parts and there's so many things that need to be considered. And, those things might not always be visible or obvious to everybody. And we're all kind of in our own little tunnels and thinking about what's impacting us. Whereas the district has to look at everything and how all of it is impacting everybody. I, as well as everyone here on the board, and our entire administration and staff, want more than anything for us to get back to a regular school environment. That is the most important thing. But we can't sacrifice the safety of our students and staff to do that. So please continue to be patient and trust that the district is doing everything that they can do to maintain the safety for our students and staff. We all need to work together to give our students the best experiences that we can under these current circumstances. Continue to ask the questions. The questions are great. So continue to ask the questions, continue to challenge, ask for understanding. But please, please, please be cautious on forming opinions based on rumors that you're hearing. And also, please be kind. Everybody is working so hard, and this is not easy on any of us. So please, as you're making comments and as you're talking to people in the community, you know, just be kind in the words that you're using. So, so I just want to get that kind of, you know, that's kind of been building up for a while. And I just want to, you know, get that out there and just realize, you know, how much I appreciate all the work that everybody is doing. And it's not easy. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about just is about the NYSBA convention. So Dr. Douglas did put out the NYSBA resolutions for the annual meeting that will happen the last week of October. We didn't get any comments around that. So I would assume that, you know, we will continue to support the resolutions as they are written. I do know myself and Mary Ann, I'm not sure if anybody else, Nancy is going to register us for the convention. It is virtual this year. So I would, you know, I would encourage you, if you have the opportunity to attend any of those sessions during those 3 days, please take that opportunity. Nancy will get you registered for that. You know, it's a great learning experience. It's a great way to see what's happening across New York State and all the other districts. The conventions that I've been to physically have been extremely valuable. And, you know, and I'm excited about the virtual opportunity because I think it can touch even more school board members across the state. So, you know, if you do have the availability, you can go out to NYSBA's website. You can see more about the sessions that they're going to be offering. And then Nancy can help get you registered. And then the last thing is the business meeting that's on the 31st. If we have anybody from our board that is available, and Dr. Douglas is shaking his head, so it looks like
Nobody signed up for it yet.
nobody available to attend that and vote on our behalf. And you know, right now I am not available, but if we don't get anybody else, I'll see what I can do to make myself available to at least represent the district as part of that.
Dan and Doug have experience.
It's the night of the 31st.
Yeah, it's the day of the 31st.
morning.
It can be in the morning of it.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry, what day of the week is that?
Saturday.
Saturday.
Okay. You can pencil me in as a possible. I think I'll probably do that.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
And if I may add, if anybody wishes to go, I need your names by tomorrow so Nancy can get the final registration set. And Doug, I just need a commitment because I've got to send in the name for the board delegate or alternate.
Okay, I'll commit to it now unless.
Okay. If you can't, you just don't show up. That's okay. That's happened before.
Well, I don't think that's okay, but.
I know, but.
Okay.
And it's Halloween. You could dress up as a board member. All right, bad joke. Sorry.
Okay. Ms. Perea, would you please sign me up for the convention?
She will.
All right, thank you.
Okay. So we did not have an audit committee meeting this past month, but we did have policy committee meetings. So we have the policy committee report.
Yes, we met on October 1st via Zoom. We discussed, and we have first readings tonight of policies 2342 through 2360, which cover agenda preparation, quorum, rules of order, and minutes. Those are all coming with suggested changes for first reading tonight for the board's first look and review of those. And then we did another review of policy 2340, notice of meetings. I don't believe we suggested any changes at this point, so it is up for a final adoption tonight.
Any comments or questions? Okay. Next up, we have our finance items up for action. 8.02 through 8.13. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments on any of the items from 8.02 to 8.13? Warren?
I probably should have interrupted you before you started this. I didn't write down, I guess I didn't do my homework in advance. Which number is the Humana policy? is it in this grouping or it's another grouping, correct?
Yeah, it's down in the next one under the personnel items.
Okay, so that's the next,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
Then I'll deal with it there. Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. Doug?
As a BOCES employee, I do not have to abstain on the business agenda tonight. As far as I can see, there are no BOCES related items. So I would just want to bring that to everyone's attention in case people thought I was not paying attention during the business.
This is a very rare moment.
I don't think I've ever witnessed it. Okay, any other questions or comments? All right, all those in favor of 8.02 through 8.13, say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Oh,
All those opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, thank you. Next up, our personnel items for action are 9.02, the HR recommendations, and 9.03, the Humana Group Medicare Advantage Plan renewal. So can I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Okay. All right, any comments or questions? Warren?
I'm because it has been offered to teachers now, and I'm sure it's going to be offered again. So it would be a conflict of interest.
Okay. Brian?
Christine, on the HR recommendations under M4, which is under the stipends, my sister is listed, so I will abstain just for them, the M4.
Okay. Okay, anything else? Okay, all those in favor say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
All those opposed? And then any other abstentions besides Warren on 9.03 and Brian on 9.02 M4? Okay, thank you. Next up, we have our miscellaneous items, 10.02 to 10.05. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, comments, discussion? Okay. All those in favor say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. And any abstentions? Okay. Next, we have our board policies up for action. It's our second reading, 11.02. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so any questions or discussion? This is our board policy 2340, notice of meetings. Okay, all those in favor say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. And any abstentions? Okay, lastly, we have, or not lastly, we have our board policies for first reading, 12.01, 12.04. Any discussion on any of those? Any questions anybody has? Okay, I think all the changes seem pretty straightforward as you go through them. Okay, so they'll be up for vote for action next meeting. And we move to our board member comments. Any comments by any of our board members?
I just have two if nobody has them.
Okay.
Anybody else? Well, I want to congratulate Gardner Road on being notified as June 2020 as a recognition school recipient. So this is, I think, the second or third year in a row that they've been notified, and I'll deliver that to Patrick Patterson tomorrow and his whole staff. So congratulations to them. And I know Mike would be very proud, but I know he does a lot of work. I know Caitlin, but the entire district has again been awarded its excellence in safety education by our insurance company with a $500 donation to the district for the highest level of maintaining safety and security. So how appropriate for tonight. So I just wanted to let the district know that will be going up on our MMC wall. And someday when we do address the MMC, we're gonna have to find a new wall to put all these awards on. So thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations. Any other comments from anybody? All right, well, that concludes our meeting. So if I can have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Okay, well, thank you very much, everybody, for joining us tonight. And I hope you all have a good time. I'll turn it over to you to close it out.
Ladies and gentlemen, this will be posted on our website and you can find this so they can refer to it or forward it on to any of the individuals that may have missed the meeting. Again, if you have any questions, please contact the superintendent's office as well at tdouglas.horseheadsdistrict.com. And we'll be happy to try to get you some assistance or help. And we want to thank everybody, especially the board, for everything they're doing for our kids and community. Thank you all for being such a wonderful board. Have a good night.
Thanks.